Hello and welcome back to my channel, Checks, Captures, Threats. In today's episode, in episode 37 of the Chess Guide, we'll be going over open files. So, we have 4 examples today. Now, open files normally happen just after the opening, so therefore we're not really going to be able to show you any of the 4 openings today. So, instead, we've got these 4 made up examples here to help you understand what open files are in 4 examples. So, first example is how we're going to be able to use them. What are they? The second example is where we're going to show what semi-open files are. The third example is why queens on an open file might be good or bad. And last example is what we can do with an open filed rook. So, without further ado, let's go through the first one. So, first example here. What is an open file? So, an open file, just to make sure we understand what files and ranks are, you might hear a lot of time people saying what they are, and you might not know what they mean. So, you see the letters here, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. If we go up with those, these are what we call files. So, all the ones going up here are files. Okay. And all the ones going across, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, they are all ranks. So make sure you don't get them mixed up because they obviously mean very different things. They mean the opposite way around. So try and think of the numbers are horizontal and the letters go vertical. So in this scenario here, an open file, knowing that the word open, obviously meaning that there's nothing really going to be there, it's free to roam. Here we can see that the A file has nothing, everything's there. The B file has 2 pawns there. The C file has 5 things on there. The D file has 3 pawns and pieces. And the E file has nothing. So as we see here, as I can highlight, either side has nothing. So what we can do here is we can put our rook onto E1. Now, this obviously obtains the file. And what does this do? This will stop something. So, for example, let's say we didn't play that. Let's say we just made a pawn move. This knight would be able to come to the center. This rook on their side would be able to take the E8 and hold side here. So what this rook does is this blocks both of those from happening. Obviously can't come here, we just capture, and the same thing goes with this. So if this happened, we're able to just capture. So obviously what we can see here is that the open file limits piece activity, and we can use it in later examples here, as we'll show you, for how we can use it to lift the rook up. So as called a rook lift. Now, the second example here is we know what a open file is. Now we're going to do what a semi-open file is. A semi-open file is a file which has only 1 pawn on it on the other side. So what I mean here is, just looking at the pawns, either side here has a pawn, which means it's not going to be an open or semi-open. Neither these two or these. Now, this D5 pawn is the only one. There is no white pawn here, which means if we moved a rook to D1, this would mean we have obtained a semi-open file, because obviously if there was 2 pawns it would be quite blocked in. It wouldn't be a file really that's open. Whereas this is half open because our pawns, because it's not there, we can move a bit more with this rook. So here, why is it good? Now this is another question. Again, this can limit, some piece activity between these squares. Also, again, this is a very nice way to not have it, so that here, if I just show a few moves here, it'd be very easy for them to put their rook in line here, because it's obviously protected. Whereas here, no rook can, yes, it can protect the pawn, but we can always move our rook, without having the threat of this rook. So there's that. Okay. Third example here is why a queen might be good and bad on an open file. So in this position, our queen's on an open file. Rook to do. But this is not always good, because obviously, if we make a move here, the rook can very easily take control of this because we can't block this. Our rooks are also on the first rank, so we're going to have to move, which therefore gives black the open file. Though, being our move here, we can do this a few ways. As we've said with the rooks, they're quite good for a lift. So what we can do here as white is we could use this file as a way to, like a stepping stone to get to where we want to. So let's say we really wanted to attack the king here. We just have to move it up one. If they're going to play a move here, we can go all the way up to g5, for example. Maybe you want to try and attack this pawn because you have something else. Try and attack there. Maybe, you know, you want to play on the queen side. You want to play this move, for example. Again, you get attacked, you can move. Now, yes, obviously this gives them the open file, but as we can see, it won't be very long till we can attack the open file with this. So this will happen a lot. It's like a standoff between the two rooks. Now, this is always fine because obviously you're being protected. You've just got to be careful because they might try and do something like this where they're going to try and double up. Now, in my opinion, you'd either also have to double up here. So you might see something like this, or you might just have to capture in some scenarios because it might be a bit too dangerous. This is where maybe you think this is going to happen. So remembering our last few episodes where we just have to plan and predict moves, maybe you expect that to happen. So you're going to do this. So you put the queen on c2. So you're going to kind of here expect this will happen. And now you can put your rook on the open file with the queen protecting it here, forcing the queen to move in. Now you've got the open file. And then you can double up. Now, doubling up, I haven't got this as an example, but doubling up in an open file is what we can call a battery, but especially with two rooks. If it's a rook and queen, that's also one of the combinations we went over. That's very strong. You've just got to be careful if they've got enough defenders to try and, you know, reroute them. You've just always got to be careful for that. And last but not least, why can we use an open file? So we went over a rook lift, and if you remember one of our very early episodes, rooks belong on the 7th rank. So obviously on the 7th rank here, and this in this position is attacking the rook and the bishop. So obviously it can't move because we just capture. So they therefore have to forcefully move one of their rooks to protect this. And this is where we can do stuff like, you know, putting more pressure on this piece, for example. So here we go in this scenario. Or, you know, if they bring this rook to protect it, you know, maybe we might not win a piece here, but we can still use this to advantage and play something like this. You know, maybe we want to double up now on the open file. So the reason here is we see how strong it is. If I show you the evaluation bar, if I can, it would be 2.2 up for us, which means they're almost like a piece up, realistically. I mean, we're obviously not because we have the same amount of pieces, but because their pieces are not that good here and how we're attacking them, it's just going to end up that we are so much stronger because all their pieces are defensive, whereas ours are kind of attacking. So that is it for today's video. We went over open files. Hopefully you understand now why they are what they are, what semi-open files are, how the queen might be good or bad on it, depending on the position. Again, most of the time, everything depends on the position. If a piece is not in the best place, you know, an open file like that, move it, try and hopefully, you know, use it to do something else. But other than that, we also saw how rooks obviously do well with open files because they work in what we call a rook lift. So that is it for today's video. So thank you and bye bye.